You wake up every morning and see the footsteps. It's the name of a very short horror game I made the other day. It wasn't really intended to be a Halloween game as such, but as it happened, a game in a game jam that started out with the word footsteps evolved into this thing, which is, I guess, sort of inspired by things like The Thing and so on. You are on your own in a wintry landscape and you are trying to survive against some unknown monster. So I'm gonna start out by just playing the game, showing you kind of what it is, and then I'm gonna talk you through the code a little bit and talk a bit about some of the ideas I was kind of trying to bring across with it, and also talk maybe a bit about where I might go with it to extend the gameplay. Okay, so let's get started. Okay. You wake up every morning and see the footsteps. You might be able to see them there in the bottom right corner, just a few little dots, heading towards you and your cabin, somewhere from the deep woods. And there right in the center you are. The entire game's just played with arrow keys, which I tried to show by just having the arrows blink until you actually make a move. And so you move around, just like that, and you too leave footsteps. You interact by things, but just bumping into them. So here's your cabin. And again, like I was trying to get a bit of a, set something of a mood, as you can see. So let's wander over here. And here we find a burnt out fireplace, and right next to it we find some wood, which you can grab and put on the fire. And that lets us push back the dark a little bit. And over here, of course, is an axe. Again, with the foreshadowing, right? And of course, you know, you've got an axe, you've got some trees, yeah, you can chop down the wood. You can just carry one pile of wood. And you can then move this wood, say, down to this little fireplace. And so, like, the idea is that pretty quickly you kind of realize, okay, there's this basic interaction you can do about lighting fires. You might go and investigate the tracks over there, but soon after that it gets dark, so let's run home. Oh, that's now very dark. I just managed to lose. No, I just about managed. So I lock the door behind me and I guess I go to sleep. And here we are, and this time the footsteps have got quite a lot closer. They're coming from a different direction now, again out of the deep forest, but they're quite a lot closer. So I'm just going to light this fire near my house, chop down this tree and then go investigate. So again, just a little bit of creepy mood setting. Let's get to work lighting those fires. And the player sort of has to assume that the fires do something. They do something, they do help, but you know, you're never explicitly told, oh, the fires will keep the monster back. It just sort of hopefully communicates this in a visual sense that you're pushing back this dark, you're kind of stopping these encroaching footsteps. Do I have enough time to quickly go up there into the dark? Light this last fire. Okay. here we are, we're still alive, but the footsteps are coming closer, and around this time, of course, the player also realizes another little problem, which is that they're rapidly running out of easy accessible wood. There's lots of wood, but it's all pretty far away, and they've been using up all of their nearby wood to light those fires, and now the monster's getting closer, and the need for wood is, if anything, more urgent. And there's not that much time in the day, so yeah. Yeah, it does eventually tell you, if you check again, that yes, the creature is scared of the fire for now. So, light those fires. Try to keep the creature at bay for just a little bit. Ooh. Grab that wood, run home, and go to sleep. And we're still alive, but now it's got within a few steps. It sort of stopped just outside our house, just outside the radius of the light. So yeah, let's try and not die for another night. Let's light that fire here, and then grab that wood there and kind of try to light as many of the kind of 3 fires surrounding as we can manage before night falls. And night falls already. There's no way I can grab a log and get it all the way up there. So I'm just gonna hope it's not sneaking out of the north tonight. And, well, it turns out my hope was entirely for nothing. I am quite dead. And that's it. That's pretty much the game. There's one mechanic I didn't show you, which is, I'll just quickly show it to you now, which is that you can actually pile up wood. So if you play it for a second time, what you can do is, if you go and grab the axe, then you go and harvest some wood and plonk it into the fire and harvest some more wood. You can stack additional wood against the fire. So the idea is that if you, like, right now, like, really, actually, I don't really need the fire. It's probably not going to kill me first night. So I might as well spend my time, gathering wood for tomorrow. So it might let me survive another night or two if I do it very carefully. And that's kind of your high score, really. This game, it's a survival game in the most horrible sense possible, in that you're just trying to not die for a few nights. And so yeah, that's the game. Let's talk a bit about what the sort of ideas were behind it. So this was a micro game jam organized by good friends of mine in Zurich. We have this event, or this organization called GameSpace, that gets together about once a month. We do kind of social things for game developers, and we also often do these mini game jams called Meet and Make, where we have some theme, or we come up with some theme, and we have all of 3 hours to put something together. And we used storyteller dice to come up with some themes, and one of my dice rolled a little footstep. And like, I kind of ended up kind of going, well, footsteps, it's sort of, a cool idea, that's something you could do something with, seeing just footsteps. At first I was thinking, well, maybe you can see like the footsteps of like robbers who are trying to investigate something, almost some kind of murder mystery game or something like that. It didn't quite click. And then I kind of kept on thinking about, what kind of bad stuff could be happening. And I think I thought of The Thing, movie. Actually, the original short story, which is called Who Goes There, is very, very much worth watching. worth reading. I highly recommend that. You can get it. It's, I think, out of copyright now. If not, you can get it in a totally legal fashion on the internet somewhere anyway. And the thing with Who Goes There is that, like, okay, you know the basic scenario, right? There's a shape-shifting monster. You are stuck somewhere in the middle of nowhere. The shape-shifting monster is impersonating like your friends, and you sort of have to kill your friends and hope you kill the monster. That's the kind of basic thing. It's been used so many times since. It's, you know, that kind of purple people eater scenario. And what's usually frustrating with these sorts, most of the kind of versions of this story is that everyone is really stupid. Like, everyone's just panics or is utterly irrational or can't do basic arithmetic. It's like, you know, you get these sorts of puzzles that are meant to, like, I guess maybe make the reader or viewer feel smart, where it's absolutely obvious who the monster is, and somehow people don't pick up on it, or they make stupid kind of, oh, I'll go out on my own and get eaten kind of decisions. And the great thing about Who Goes There is that that's not the case. They are not carrying the idiot ball. They realize really quickly, actually, what's going on. They figure out the whole shape-shifting monster thing kind of on page 3, and the rest of it is them trying to really putting a lot of thought and effort into dealing with the situation, into trying to figure out who the monster is. And so in a sense, it's one of those kind of seminal stories that ends up being kind of way better than almost everything that's based on it afterwards. It kind of opens and shuts the book almost on the kind of purple people eater thing. And all of the kind of later versions of it are, yeah, a lot of the time it's just people being stupid for the sake of plot. So yeah, it's well worth reading. So anyway, I was thinking of the thing, I was thinking of this whole, like, yeah, you know, there's footsteps and there's a monster and leaves footsteps, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. You never see the monster. Like, that's a basic rule. Even if I continue working on this, the basic rule I want to keep is you never actually properly see the monster. You just see its footsteps or other effects. Another funny thing is, like, this is a horror game. It's a survival horror game, but it's kind of an asynchronous survival horror game. You do your thing during the day, and then the monster does its thing during the night. You never coexist until right at the end, where you die horribly. It's kind of almost turn-based. And so to kind of underscore that sort of minimalist, I guess, mechanics, I also went for a kind of a very minimalist palette. I actually grabbed the colors from Airships Conquer the Skies, my main project. This is like the standard red and the standard kind of skin color from it, and I ended up, after some back and forth, was having a kind of a dark red, almost black color for some special things, basically for death. And I'm really pleased with how that's come out, because I mean, there's like basically no graphic, like there's just a tiny amount of graphics here. You can basically see all of the graphical assets in the game you can see right now, and they're just little 10 by 10 sprites, but it somehow brings across that, like, it was featured in a kind of Halloween roundup in Rock Paper Shotgun, and I was really pleased to see that the guy who'd written it up, like, realized that, you know, this is like a snowy clearing in forest. I mean, maybe this is obvious, but I was really pleased I got across, this is a snowy clearing in a forest, and you're kind of stuck somewhere in the middle of nowhere with a monster, despite the fact that everything's in like beige and red. And I think the beige and red actually works well, because it's gives the whole thing a kind of a surreal, dreamlike quality. You know, that works pretty well, I think. So yeah, as you can see, I'm kind of probably overly pleased with this game, just because I made it, like, I literally worked on it for 3 hours, and then I went back home and I did a little bit of polish for another 2 hours, just kind of fixing some messages, dealing with some corner cases and packaging it up and putting it up on HIO and writing a blog post. And I'm just really pleased with how it's come out for that tiny amount of effort put into it. And so, like, the question is, well, and there's kind of two things. There's two things which kind of come from me from that. One is that like, hey, it's really fun to make prototypes. I already knew that, but I guess I've been so concentrating on airships that really have been doing very little prototyping. And I think that actually with prototypes, evidently what really works is, like graphically speaking, to go for like a really reduced palette, just because it sort of prevents you from, it makes the game look good, just because it looks like, you know, it has a theme. You almost can't do too badly if you have literally two random colors, or like three. It stops you from, you know, obsessing about graphics, but it still makes the game look quite decent. This is like not awful to look at. It's got a kind of a quality to it, and so that's good. You can make a little prototype with very little graphical effort, but the fact that it's low effort graphics doesn't destroy the impression of it. So I think I will do that again. I have a few other kind of slightly larger but not much bigger kind of game prototype ideas. I think I'll do them in a similar style. I'll pick 2 or 3 other colors and just do everything in this sort of minimalist pixel approach. Just because, yeah, it lets you churn out the graphics really quickly and it looks okay. Because I do think with prototyping, the problem is like prototyping is so necessary for games, but what's hard is sometimes a game only really, you know, prototype isn't just about the mechanics, it's about the feel of the game. It's about like, you know, do you show this to someone or do you play this and you're like, oh, I want to do more with this. And I think that if you go for really hideous, mismatched quality, mismatched style graphics, that means there's no real feel to it. Visually, there's no feel to it. And I think that makes it harder to gauge whether there's actually something to the game. If you're kind of constantly having to go, yes, it wouldn't look as horrible as it actually does. I don't know, probably other people don't care about this, but I'm a sufficiently visual person to care about, you know, my prototypes not looking completely awful. And so if I go for a kind of higher fidelity type of graphics, I will spend so much time just fiddling around with like minor details in the presentation, just so I can play the prototype and evaluate it without being constantly distracted by going, oh no, but that's the border in between these two tiles, and oh no, that color combination, oh, that's awful. So yeah, monochrome stuff, pretty good for that. And yeah, so you might see some more games of that sort of style and scope from me in the next few months and so on. Obviously, as we are moving towards finishing airships, I said I was going to finish it in 2015. This is not going to happen. It will finish in 2016. I'm even hoping for early 2016. But the question is, what am I doing afterwards? There's some idea of that I might do some expansions for it, but I'm not sure about that. I might also want to do something else. And long term, you know, what's my next game project? And so doing lots of prototypes obviously helps me decide that. Okay, so the other question is like, what could you add to this game? I'm kind of tempted to, you know, put a little bit more work into it. Because I don't know, I just like it sort of the way it kind of manages to lead the player along to certain activities, the way it kind of unfolds what you can do by just kind of letting you try stuff out, without ever really giving you any explicit instructions beyond arrow keys right at the start. Yeah, you might. There's this gaming, this game development really channel called Extra Credits. They used to be with Escapist. I think they ran away from them a while ago, but they had this one episode about what they called unfolding games, which the idea is you have sort of games that kind of start slow and add more dimensions to things over time. And the example that they used for that, the kind of prime example maybe, is a game called The Dark Room, which I guess is actually also totally an inspiration for this. So A Dark Room, in case you haven't played that, again, you should play it. It's free online, or it's like $1 on the on like the iPhone store these days, I think. I actually did a little bit of development on it, just as a kind of a pull request. So if you've played it, you can thank me for like a few encounters involving medicine. I think I added medicine to the game. I think that's the one thing I did, yeah. So yeah, anyway, the point is you start out in a dark room and there's a fire and you can light the fire. And it's at the start it really looks just like a clicker game. It looks like an idle clicker game, like Cookie Clicker or Civ Clicker or whatever, you know, Kitten Clicker, clicker. And then it sort of starts branching out, and like you keep on, like you gather wood, you keep the fire going, someone kind of stumbles in and starts helping you set up things, you build huts, families turn up, and before you know it you're actually not running a clicker game as much as that you're like running a little community of people and defending them. And then you eventually, it turns out there's a world map, there's a tile-based world map, and you can outfit expeditions. You can go out and like have a kind of post-apocalyptic role-playing experience there, where you are like scrambling through ruined places and having fights and gathering scraps, and as you do that you kind of clear out more locations. And it goes on beyond that. I won't spoil the final ending, but it's actually a way of winning it that goes beyond that again. And so the game sort of changes, right? It starts out as a kind of simple clicker game, and then it becomes like a town management game, and then it becomes like an exploration RPG, and they all kind of feed into each other in a very nice way. And so I'm not saying I want to do the same thing here. The idea isn't that you can start building a town and the monster comes and like starts occupying a hut and paying rent. As much of an interesting social commentary as that would be, I'm sure. The idea is more, well, you know, what can you do to make the game deeper, to kind of have that experience of like you think this is the game, and then you make a discovery about something, and that actually means that no, there's another aspect of it. And the idea would be to have this multiple stages where you feel like, okay, now this is the actual game. And then you go, oh no, actually, this rabbit hole goes deeper. I'm kind of trying to start putting together what each step of this rabbit hole would be, and I've been talking to my flatmates about it quite a lot, probably boring them to death about it, but and we came up with like the first level beyond what's there. I guess you could say like, you know, the 0th level is like just you're there and you're wandering around and you like look at some stuff and you find the tracks of the monster. And then level 1 is realizing, oh, this isn't just about like exploration stuff, this is actually about like chopping down wood and lighting fires. And then you could say like level 2, if you want to make it really fine-grained, you realize, oh wait a moment, there's a resource scarcity problem here because all the wood is far away. So you could build that up a bit more. I want to make it a bit easier to make piles of wood. So you can actually, like in the 2nd or 3rd playthrough, your strategy changes quite a lot, and you go from just sort of wandering around and lighting some fires to like desperately like going out there and grabbing lots of wood and making huge stacks of wood and trying to really build this sort of defensive bulwark against the incoming monster. And the thing we came up with, which I liked for the next step, is that right now, if you get caught outside and it goes completely dark, you die. The monster just eats you. In fact, there's a slight bug in the sense that, and when you die, so it gives you the same death message about the door, even if you're stranded in the middle of nowhere. So that needs some fixing. But the idea would be, well, wait a moment, surely if you're like inside the circle of the light, you wouldn't instantly die. And in fact, you could maybe grab like a burning stick as a kind of makeshift torch and explore a bit. So the idea is to actually make it more synchronous. The monster, when night hits, you can stay outside as long as you stay within the light, and the monster will start moving towards the cabin or towards you, at like synchronously at the same time as you are moving around, and you can grab, you know, a stick which doesn't last for very long, but maybe you can use it to kind of bridge the gap in between two fireplaces, and you can explore a little bit at night. And and the monster will, you know, you might see the eyes of the monster reflected in the firelight as it kind of shies away. Of course, there still must be a way of losing, so you mustn't be able to just constantly relight the fire and stay, you know, next to the fire all night. But there's ways around that. I mean, the obvious, I guess, correct one is that you get too tired to do that. You can't do that every night. You can maybe stay awake through one night, but then the next you get increasingly tired, and so you need your sleep. Or you start moving very slowly. You start losing like maybe even abilities. Like, no, you feel too weak to like cut down the tree or whatever, and so, you know, you can have your occasional little excursion, but you just can't just do it indefinitely. If nothing else happens, you will still eventually end up in that little cabin when the door opens and the monster turns up. And so the idea is then, and I'm not sure yet what to do there, the idea is that when you're wandering around at night, you find something else that really changes, again, your whole idea of what this game actually is and how you have to play it and what you have to do. And maybe the first time you find it, like a minute later you make a mistake and you die, but then you know, like, wait, no, I know that somewhere out there's this thing. And you start playing the game again in a different way, not to defend, but to get to this thing, because you don't know what it is. Maybe you don't know, you know, if it's going to be any help, but you're pretty certain that, you know, just staying in your comfort zone is going to lead to death. And so that's the kind of thing I would like to try doing with this game, staying very much within the confines of its graphics, of its kind of interface. You know, I'd like to not have to start using any more buttons. I'd like to not have to start using any more colors. And within these limitations, I think there's an interesting sort of unfolding horror game that can go beyond what's here right now. Okay, I think this is pretty much all I wanted to say on the topic of this game. I hope you found it interesting. Yeah, and I will be back tomorrow, I think, with some Airships Conquer the Skies development, where I am still slowly turning the entire game into a data-driven one, based on loading everything in from JSON. And yeah, I hope to soon be able to share some fun news about the Airships Artist Competition, and I hope to be able to soon tell you, you know, what's in store for that, for the additional graphics for the game. For now, I thank you for watching. If you like this, if you like me rambling about game development, please do subscribe on Twitch TV. I will also be putting this on YouTube as usual, so you can watch it there, subscribe there, whichever. And that is all. Thank you.